Welcome to GRC Uncensored, a new podcast designed to elevate real conversations with GRC professionals, auditors, regulators, and those building programs around it. Your hosts Troy Fine and Kendra Cooley, alongside producer Elliot Volkman, guide unfiltered discussions that dig into the reality of how governance, risk, and compliance function, rather than the rose-colored perspective that's fueled by millions in marketing spend. Now, onto your hosts.
Hello and welcome back to GRC Uncensored, and hello to Kendra's mom. We are.
She's gonna love that. Start. What are you doing with Kendra's mom? What are you talking about? This is weird.
Oh God! All right.
She was our number one fan. She's gonna love that shout out so much.
Amazing. All right. So we actually have a show here outside of terrorizing my colleagues here, and we have a wonderful guest. But before we introduce our guest, we are going to be, I think, in theory, talking about third-party risk management, or TPRM, as the kids call it. But for that, we have Mr. Henry Stanley, who I believe has founded or co-founded and is currently the COO of a company within our realm, a company called Fabrik. Henry, did I mess that up? Because usually I do, but does that sound right?
CPO, Chief Product Officer, yeah.
No. Okay, sorry, CPO. There's another letter in there.
It's all good. Let's just draw a little stick on the side.
Darren, I'll just do some AI buffering and we'll be good to go.
Early days, everyone's doing everything, right?
Actually, you know what? That's a fair point. So I'm probably like slightly accurate, but mostly not. Excellent. All right, so we haven't really chatted through exactly what we're going to talk about. So Troy, I'm gonna offer this opportunity to you. Do you want to start with your question, or are we going to go into the
first? You guys like my new apartment? This is modern apartment background in Riverside. So do you like it?
I don't know, man. It looks a little bit like AI. Maybe
I don't know. No, Riverside's logo's in the back on my mirror there in the back there on my little office room back there. See it? It's Riverside.
You see it?
Very fancy.
This is my future. This is what I want my apartment to look like. So.
Didn't you just buy a house?
Me?
Yeah.
I've been living in my house for 10 years.
Oh, I thought you sold it because we were talking about you hiring people to do shoddy work. Like,
I do remember that episode. No, if I were to sell my house, I'm saying I would have the least and cheapest people fix things so that I didn't make it the other people's problems.
Got it.
Because we were talking about why you'd want a low quality SOC 2 audit. Maybe there's a market for that because you just want to get it done and forget about it. And that was my metaphor.
Convincingly.
Yeah.
I thought you were hiring someone.
What's the Airbnb buy and flip of SOC 2s?
What's the Airbnb flip?
I like that positioning.
I don't understand the question. Hold on. Wait, I'm confused. I confused myself.
No, let Henry add a little more context. I know you're old and not.
I am old. I'm probably the oldest one. No, we won't go there. I'm old though.
No, you just you grab a fire sale property. You put some lipstick on the pig and you sell it to sell it down the line, right?
Oh yeah, that's.
So would the equivalent being like you went to like a Big Four and then you opted for one of those SOC 2 shops to keep it fresh?
No, I would think it'd be the equivalent of like, hey, we're about to get acquired, but they want to do due diligence on us, so we get a cheap SOC 2 report. We have no security in place. We pass it off, and then they acquire us and find out that we don't even have MFA, and
That sounds right.
That's when I would feel like the flip there. But yeah, I don't know if you got. Yeah. Anyways, we could go into that, but yeah, I like Henry, so I wanted to bring him on the podcast. That's why we brought him on. But Henry, why don't you tell us a little bit about what Fabrik does, and then we'll get into like TPRM and probably talk a little bit about SOC 2, I'm sure.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, look, before even talking about Fabrik, I think it's like the reason Fabrik exists is because of the environment that we're all, I think, facing day in and day out when it comes to third-party risk and customer trust. Fabrik is interesting and kind of unique in the sense that it's not a risk platform, it's not a GRC tool, and it's also not like a trust center or an assurance tool. It's really a data collaboration platform. It's a new kind of way for GRC teams to collaborate and connect with each other across platform boundaries so that they can alleviate a lot of the frustration and friction that's historically plagued a lot of these teams when it comes to dealing with third-party risk, customer trust, and insurance workflows. So we founded it about 2 years ago on kind of that nugget of insight around third-party risk is incredibly frustrating for a lot of teams, and it's also frustrating on the receiving end as well. I've lived it, firsthand, building and deploying GRC programs at companies like Spotify and Clear. And, at the end of the day, I think folks just want to connect, with folks. They don't want to kind of just sit and stare at endless process queues and, paper pushing. And a big part of the opportunity that we're trying to chase here is, helping folks get back to more of that human connection, focusing on the material risk work that matters, and kind of abstract away a lot of the frustration and complexity that comes with just shuffling documents and paper, and really getting to that next level of collaboration and risk insight that's possible now with a lot of these platforms. So that's a big part of what we're doing and why we're here.
So you're taking data that people don't like looking at, the TPRM process, and making it easier to gather and synthesize to assess risk.
Yeah, even more simply, we make it easy for teams to collaborate and exchange data for these workflows instead of having to chase it down manually and collect it manually and jump around endless email threads and inbox threads and back and forth.
Nice. No, I like that. I think obviously TPRM teams, from my experience when I talk with them, are already have resource constraints, right? So if they're too busy dealing with like paper pushing and trying to get SOC reports or trying to get other questionnaires answered or anything, or dealing with this trust center over here or this GRC platform, it kind of just takes them away from being able to focus on their work. So it sounds like this can kind of help them do better work and better risk management while not worrying about all the data gathering exercises.
The data itself doesn't matter. The data is incredibly important. It's just that the process that we end up having to go through, from sending out questionnaires and chasing down responses, the endless follow-ups, and kind of on the other side, being on the receiving end of that. And maybe you have a lot of your data in a trust center or in a Dropbox somewhere or a Google Drive, and you're trying to get that into the hands of your customers. How do you reduce the friction and reduce a lot of the frustration around that? A big part of why that's hard is because we can go deep on this, but because this market is just so fragmented. Everyone has a different process and everyone has a different tool. And it's just a constant tug of war. It's like, no, follow my process. No, follow my process. And you end up playing this kind of deal size leverage tug of war to really figure out who's going to win and sort of like pushing the other party into their tool or their process or their workflow. And a big part of, what we're trying to help folks with is just acknowledge that this will always be a very fragmented, very segmented ecosystem. Let's just help people maximize the value of the tools they already use, the process that they already have in place, and just bring better connectivity so that they can collaborate more natively inside of what they already know and what they've already invested in.
So I have a question about this because I candidly don't know a whole heck of a lot about your tool. I'm learning a lot now. So from an internal third-party risk management perspective, if I'm the person sending out questionnaires to different vendors, your tool essentially helps me to partner with them in whatever, if they have Wistic or a Drata Trust Center or something like that, just basically help to pull all of that into a centralized location. Am I understanding that correctly? So that it doesn't matter what tool they're using?
Yeah, essentially. It doesn't really matter what tool they're using. They're able to build an authorized connection to that vendor's preferred source of truth, and that vendor is able to release that data directly into the platform that you might be using.
Okay, so then my internal team would have basically a single pane of glass that they're looking for that information in versus going to all of these different segmented tools.
Yeah, and even simpler than that is that single pane of glass could be whatever TPRM tool you already use. That's not us.
Oh, okay, so you're really just the connector between. Okay, that's really. Yeah. And so then on the opposite side of that, I know something that we see a lot with our customers who are vetting us is that we get different questionnaire portals all the time that we have to log into. So Fabrik would essentially allow us to answer those questionnaires without necessarily having to interact with their portal. Is that kind of the opposite side of that?
It depends on how you want to answer those questionnaires. And we can get into what's the utility of the questionnaire and how you're responding to it. But a lot of folks are investing in AI questionnaire response solutions, and those are great. And I think a lot of folks should be leveraging that. What is often challenging is that a lot of these portals, it's really hard to actually get the questions out of them. Sometimes you have an export functionality. The workaround is that a lot of these platforms have built these Chrome extensions, which are, some of them are useful, some of them are moderate reliability. It really just depends on the one that you're using, because these web interfaces are kind of brittle and they break a lot, to try to get the questions so that you can then answer and respond to them. What we're able to do is based on, having these native integrations on both sides, we're able to actually give you all of the assessment context, all the questions, so that you can pull that into whatever AI workflow platform you want to work within. And then you can do, your human in the loop review, your verification, you can, map that on your side, and then you can pipe that back directly into your customer's preferred assessment workflow. So it enables both parties to work within their preferred context without this tug of war of like, log into my thing, to log into my thing, and the inefficiency that comes with that.
I like that. I can't tell you how many logins I have to various questionnaire platforms at this point.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked to some of the bigger companies, and it's north of 100, 130. It just depends on where there's, the big ones, of course, but then there's just this massive long tail of custom portals and just ad hoc ways of doing this. And that's what I mean by it's very fragmented, because, it's not just GRC platforms, it's a lot of homegrown solutions and a lot of people just kind of doing whatever they can with what they have. And we're trying to, we're not saying like, we're going to be the standard way of doing it. We're going to be a standard platform that everyone uses. In fact, we would like to empower people to use whatever works best for them. And I think that's a big theme that's kind of missing from a lot of GRC that I see, which is standardization is kind of a losing battle in a lot of ways, because there will always be a permutation on top of it. So I think it's almost like, why not just embrace the segmentation, embrace the fragmentation, and then just find ways to build for that instead of fighting against it.
That's a good idea. You're trying to not put people in a box. You're trying to use their box that they've already built. That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. I think a big challenge that I know that I've seen Troy, you talk about too, is what does it mean for there to be, I guess, like consistency around these things that we're holding as standards. And obviously we all know that SOC 2 is supposed to be this standardized way of demonstrating something. At least if it's not necessarily a standard in the way that some people think it is, but it's a standardized framework, right? But there's just so many permutations that come out of that, largely pulled apart by market forces, right? Market forces are the things that we can't control. Like, follow the money in how things are playing out right now is really, what I'm seeing, at least, why we're in the situation that we're in terms of variance in quality, variance in adoption, variance in efficacy of how this report actually delivers the promise around trust and assurance that it's supposed to.
Yeah. You want us talking about SOC 2 and no, I'm kidding. I don't really want to. But I guess you've talked to a lot of TPRM teams, because we spoke before, and we talked about how they're like using attestation reports or certifications. I'm curious what you think the biggest pain point is with TPRM teams in leveraging independent audit reports or certifications or whatever other independent assessments they're relying on, penetration tests. I guess, what is the biggest pain point that you think they're struggling with, or that they would like to see changed with all this?
I think we have to clarify that question first, because when we say TPRM teams, that's a huge segment of many people with many different needs and incentives and interests, depending on what sector you're in, what size company you're at. We can make some assumptions, but I think it varies, and that's part of the problem. Is that some teams will care just about, hey, I've got the report, I've done a cursory check, I've looked for these things, and I'm good to go. Other teams, obviously, with much more regulatory overhead, they're going to be much more scrutinizing of not just the report, but the overall assurance posture, and they're going to spend a lot more time looking at this as a data point. And then they're going to ask for a whole bunch of other data points. And then within that data point, they're going to be looking at different quality indicators, which, Troy, I know you've gotten pretty deep on. And I've really been loving what you've been sharing around what does good look like, or what could good look like for this particular data point, which is one of many for some of these more mature and robust TPRM teams. So it really depends on who you're talking to and what they're trying to use it for, because it very much is just a tool in the toolbox, depending on what your goals are.
Well, do you think the bigger, let's assume it for the bigger companies, right? How much weight do third-party attestations play in their, what role are they playing in their risk assessments when they're trying to bring on a new vendor? Or is it just a data point that holds very little weight, so they don't really pay too much attention to it? Or are some of them really honing in and reading every single detail, every single control, and actually using it to say, all right, we have a lot more comfort now that we got this third-party attestation report? Or is it we just want to check the box? Even with the bigger companies, I'm saying.
Yeah. So this is what I've heard, and I've talked to a lot of folks in TPRM, and this is what I'm seeing play out, is that there will always be some baseline level of, do we have this assurance? Do we have this visibility? Now, I'm not going to say that it's just to check a box, because I think for those teams, like, they're protecting some very serious and significant assets. The vast majority of TPRM teams at this scale that I'm talking to are not just checking a box. But what they are doing is that they're looking at this as a starting point, and they're saying, great, do you have this baseline in place? Because I need that baseline so that we can have a productive conversation about everything else that's going to actually be material for us to progress further in this relationship. So it's more of just like, hey, here's the starting line. Can we start this conversation? And then from there, you kind of progress into other dimensions of evaluating the nature of that relationship. Now, what I often see is that those third-party attestations are really, really helpful to have a very productive starting point in a conversation. And depending on the criticality of the vendor, you will go deeper or not as deep into unpacking certain dimensions of that relationship, as well as the nature of the integration of whatever particular product or service you're bringing into the organization. So I would say that it definitely provides value. I think it provides a lot of value. And I've seen folks indicate that it provides a lot of value, because without it, it would be a lot harder to have that conversation from any consistent or productive way. Yeah, I'll just put it there because I think it adds a lot of value.
Do they ever know how to evaluate quality of these reports? Do they? Yeah, I'll leave it at that.
Quality of the reports. I will say that it's a mixed bag. I hear more on LinkedIn about folks rejecting SOC 2s than I see in practice. So that's just the data.
Like, people are talking big game kind of thing.
I just hear more about folks saying like, oh yeah, like this is for X, Y, and Z reasons. Like there's this known list of companies that if I get one from this particular firm, like it's a kind of a can't agree, got to double click here. Then I have seen or heard from folks.
Who does that?
What's that?
Kendra does that.
And, yeah. And I mean,
She has a list.
that's okay. I'm not sure how much I favor like blackballing as like a quality control
She
mechanism.
actually does, by the way.
No, look, I think, I have not heard a ton of people say, oh, I don't trust this firm, so I won't accept them. And I'm pointing out this particular vendor who's using that firm, so this is a problem. It's more that I do hear like rumblings of folks being like, yeah, we hear that there's a lot of inconsistency. And as we dig into some of these reports, it's pretty clear that the scope of them varies wildly. So, sometimes that means that the baseline that we're starting from may be higher or lower. So I think that's really where it comes into play. And again, this all really, like the kind of filter on top of all of this is, what is the criticality of the relationship in the first place? Because if you're getting a crummy SOC 2 from a low risk vendor, like, is it even worth you kind of raising a stink about it?
Yeah.
So I think in the context of like maybe critical or high vendors, this is maybe a little bit more common, but I'm not seeing this mass exodus from SOC 2 being rejected. So they're asking for stuff instead of it. It's that SOC 2 was always a data point and a broader risk assessment. So it's always been part of the puzzle. It's never been the whole thing to begin with.
Yeah.
I used to find probably more 3 to 5 years ago, you could hand a company who's trying to do due diligence of your organization a SOC 2 report and you'd get out of a questionnaire. But more and more now, it's like, just kind of to your point, Henry, you give them your SOC 2 and then they're like, oh, by the way, I have this ginormous follow-up questionnaire. And 9 times out of 10, it feels like repetitive because you're answering all the questions that they probably could have found within your SOC 2. And also kind of feeling like, all right, is this just kind of going into a filing cabinet and they're not actually going to use it? But then you do have some of those more robust third-party vendor risk management programs where they will find things that you've written in there and say, hey, can you, dive into this a little bit more? Can you give us a little bit more information? And I actually really appreciate those follow-ups because that to me means that they actually took the time to look at what we've provided versus just throw it in a filing cabinet and never look at it again.
Yeah, that's awesome. I think what you're describing speaks to one of the other friction points in this is that, so there's 2 concerns that you outlined. One is this even valuable information? Are we using this for a meaningful like risk evaluation workflow? Or is this really just we need to have the thing filled out so we can like measure our due diligence cycle time and like it's completed in XYZ timeframe? And then the other concern is like, who is actually doing the work of substantiating whatever information needs to be put wherever to close that loop? I'm curious if you think that, like, I think at the end of the day, what's always going to be apparent is that there's going to be some measure of like hidden leverage in that conversation that will dictate how much you respond to that or how much you can get away with not responding to it or pushing back on it. I'm curious to know, like, to what extent you've seen or think that like the onset of AI is going to play a big role in just eliminating that as a friction point, or if it's going to just mask the symptoms of some of these problems and kind of maybe cause some other interesting problems to come out in other places.
It's a great question. And are you asking from the perspective of AI helping us with the reviews, or just the problems slash, let's call them opportunities, that AI is presenting in all of these tools that we're bringing into our environment?
I would say the second one is more of a broader conversation. So we'll start with the first. Yeah.
Okay, cool. So I think that, at least from my perspective, a lot of the things that I've seen, and I can't remember the name of the tool, but I actually just recently interacted with a customer's questionnaire portal that as I was filling out answers, it was automatically responding back to me with like follow-up questions that weren't the simple, you selected yes to this, here are my 5 drop-down questions. It actually felt like it was trying to get a little bit deeper into the meat of what they were trying to get at, just based off of our responses. And the cool thing about the platform that I found too, and I'm going to try and go back and find this as soon as I'm done saying this, but the cool thing about that platform too is that it actually didn't give you like just really yes, no options. They were looking for written responses. So yes, you could simply type in yes, but then it was kind of helping you to almost guide a better response for what they were looking for. So I'm going to go and try and find that, but I do think that AI has the opportunity to enhance the way that we're doing third-party risk management, especially from what I saw there. But then on the flip side, I think that there's also a lot of opportunity to make us a little bit more lazy and reliant upon tools and not take the initiative to actually dive in and see what those risks are and make sure that it meets the type of data that it's interacting with and all of that.
Yeah. That's pretty cool.
Try.
I wonder, when does it stop?
It doesn't.
I just get to ask you questions still.
Like, how does it know when to stop?
Yeah, that's a good question. I did eventually get to the end. Like the tool wasn't having me write like paragraphs by any means, but as I was answering, because I'll be honest with you, when I'm filling out a questionnaire, 9 times out of 10, I'm trying to get by with the bare minimum because, again, my experience has been customers aren't really looking at this information. It's a check the box exercise, move on. But this actually like forced me to give a more thorough answer, which was nice. And at the end of the day too, it ended up being a far smaller questionnaire than some of these others that I've seen. Like Big Light, for instance, they threw you 150 some questions and it's all just very standard. But this was like, I think 15 very pointed questions about the service. You could tell that it took into consideration the industry, the service that we were providing based off of service description, and then tailored those questions to that. It was really neat.
And you were just answering this manually?
Yeah.
Okay. Do you not use like any sort of like knowledge base that you pull from, or like prior like sources that help you offset that? Or is it just like off the top of the dome?
We have a multitude of tools that we're using for that, actually. But in a lot of cases, I do find that, especially if it's a shorter questionnaire, I just have all of this information generally floating around in my head. I'll just like, let me just knock this out really quick. Versus the friction point for me, oftentimes when I'm filling out questionnaires, is it's a pain in the neck to either export the data from the system that the customer sent it over to us, which I think we just touched on, and then to get it into a format that the tool that's helping us to respond to that is capable of interacting with, to then spit the information back out to upload it back into the platform. Pain in the neck, let me just answer these 15 questions. It'll take me 10, 20 minutes, way less frustration.
Yeah. Yeah, I've seen platforms spend years trying to build like that, like open-ended assessment ingestion type of interface, because you're getting PDFs, Word docs, Excel files, like Excel macros, portal questionnaires.
Yep.
Everything has different metadata, different formats. It's a very challenging problem to just like open-ended say, hey, just import anything into this format and we'll give you a clean, structured way of answering questions. But some people have done it and it's quite powerful when it works. It's just data in, data out is gnarly when it comes to TPRM.
Yeah, especially when you have a very well-formatted spreadsheet. with drop downs and all that jazz.
Well,
Conditional formatting, not a fan.
what would have happened if what if the answer was no? What if you didn't have something in place? It was like, do you have a physical data center? The answer is no. Would it let you answer no?
Oh, so there was also like a checkbox at it that was like, I have nothing further to
Okay.
provide. Yeah, so you could stop it for
I was
sure.
just like, because I think with it, I mean, with AI, like whenever I've been trying to get AI to help me or seen other people trying to use AI, I always feel like AI is like making a stretch to find an answer that makes you happy no matter what. Like, I really wish AI would just be like, I don't know the answer because your data sucks. Like, I don't have an answer for you either. We got to go figure this out. Instead of just like, sometimes it'll just be like, I think it's this. Like, is that good? Yeah, that sounds great. I don't know. I trust
It'll
you.
guess.
Like, that's what I think the problem is.
It'll make you think that it was accurate. That's the worst part.
And then we all just blow up because nobody knows what's true anymore. So that's my issue with some of this AI. It'll make stretches to make people happy with the responses, unless it's
Troy, what you need to do from now on when you're having your fun time with ChatGPT is after it spits out an answer to you, you should just ask it, are you sure about that? And you probably completely change what it says and see what happens.
that's a good point.
I actually do that often.
Yeah.
It's a good thing to gut check it. But
Yeah.
if you go into ChatGPT, there's settings where you can basically, excuse the language for our guest, but we're uncensored here. You can basically tell it to be an asshole and be more critical. And I definitely have those settings put in place.
Really?
And it is giving you way better responses.
Elliot, I promise I'm not offended.
You never
You have no
know.
idea how many times I've sworn at Claude and been like, you moron.
But how many people don't know? Like, people that are experts in the field know when the answer is probably wrong. But as this keeps going on, soon there will be experts using AI and trusting it to learn. They'll be learning from it. AI will be the expert, right? So who monitors it then, right? Or we're having AI answer all the questions from a questionnaire based on data it has. Kendra just ends up going, yep, I agree. Boom, send it to the customer, right? And they're like, these answers sound great. Boom, good, I accept. Okay, now what?
That's a great question for what do you all, first of all, to say no one should be like auto shipping questionnaire responses that are AI generated without at least a glance. So I hope no one's doing that. And if you're using an AI automation tool for questionnaires, you should definitely have or ensure that there is a good like evaluations framework in place that is based in ground truth, that is actually like understanding what good should look like and be able to pattern match. And right, there's tuning that goes into that. That aside, I do have a question for you guys. I wonder about what is the future of, like, how should audits role evolve in the world of AI? Because there is so much trust and so much assurance that can be baked into that. But like when things are moving so fluidly and they're moving so much more quickly, what is audit's role in all this?
This is what keeps Troy up at night, and this is why I have to
What is
Instagram memes to keep his spirits up.
Yeah, I don't have a good answer yet because eventually, yeah, that's a very challenging question to answer. I think there's two ways to look at it, right? You have audit firms that want to use AI to help them make them more efficient. Maybe, instead of auditors, we're using AI to do some testing. And then you have, on the flip side, like clients or organizations are going to be using AI to perform controls to ensure that AI perform the controls correctly. That's a whole nother like interesting idea. Like, Henry, how did you know that your control operated effectively if you're using AI? Like, you kind of see what I'm getting at? Like, as an auditor, I don't know if the AI is good. I'm relying on the customer to have good controls in place to ensure that the AI is trustworthy that they're using. You see what I'm getting at? So that's a whole nother thing that I don't know how we're going to handle that. And then you have like AI assurance, right? Can auditors be the assurance independent assessor on AI that companies are building to ensure that it's trustworthy and accurate and complete and transparent and all that, kind of what's being built with ISO 42001. So I think it's like threefold there, right? Like there's all these different aspects of it. I can say right now when we're doing audits right now, we're trying to like think like where can we leverage AI, but then there's always like this like security, or not security, but like I don't want to put clients' data in a tool, right? That like I don't trust exactly right now what they're doing with it, because sometimes they give us a lot highly sensitive data. And so there's that aspect of it. But then the other aspect is, if AI hallucinates one time and we didn't catch it and look at it, are we liable if the audit was done incorrectly and say we leveraged AI? Like, so if we're saying like it has to be 100% correct every single time the AI when it does its testing, do I have to review what the AI does every time anyways and do my own testing? So like, what did I just gain here, right? So I think auditors are in a unique position because people are relying on our reports, right? And if we're leveraging AI and something goes wrong supposedly, and we say, and someone finds out we were using AI to do our testing, isn't someone going to be annoyed that we used AI and didn't check it to make sure that it was correct? Whereas if I just had humans doing the testing, yes, humans hallucinate too, right? But we're more accepting of human error than we are of AI error, if that makes sense. I don't know the answers, but that's what's going through my head with all this, and what I'm trying to figure out as a CPA, as an audit firm owner right now.
Yeah. Do you think that people are more accepting of human error because there is no expectation of perfection, whereas there's this misplaced expectation, perhaps, of precision and perfection with AI?
Yes. In fact, right now, if my business partner is doing an audit, I've been working with him for 6 years. I've kind of gained trust that he'll do a pretty good job. I still will review his work and he'll review my work, but I'm not reviewing everything, right? I've accepted that there's a chance that I'm not going to review 100% of it. Yeah, he's probably going to miss some things. Like there's just going to be human error to misclick something or look at something wrong. But I've accepted that error rate as a human because of what you just said. Like no one's going to be perfect, so we have to accept it's reasonable assurance, right? But what's reasonable assurance with AI? Like if a self-driving car gets into an accident and kills someone, the world blows up and doesn't like that, right? But humans get in car accidents all the time and kill people, and we say like, well, that's what happens, right? It's going to happen. But if as soon as it's a self-driving car, it's like, wait a second, what's going on here? Like, I can't trust this. I don't want a self-driving car. I don't want any of this. So yeah, to answer your question, it's yes, we accept human error, but we don't accept technological errors as much.
What do you think about the sort of opportunity around, first of all, like I'm not an auditor. I've never held an audit role, but like from my experience working with them, see that there's a ton of opportunity for audit to up level in the face of all of this new technology and to achieve new efficiencies and to be more productive and to be more effective and to do more. I wonder about, like, do you see the opportunity around essentially that, like, which is like, how can audit elevate the value add to focus more on like scoping, more on like independent assurance on top of that scoping, but less on the kind of tactical actual like synthesis and gathering of that data to inform like the final deliverable? You know, like is there a balance that can shift and skew? Like, do you see that as an opportunity?
I definitely see it as an opportunity. I mean, I'm sure like when we're ready to go hire somebody, the first thing we're probably gonna look at is like, well, do we have to like hire a full-time person? Maybe we could bring like a contractor on or a part-time, and maybe we can leverage technology to help us first, right? So before we might have just been like, we have to go hire somebody, right? We got too much work. I'm sure the conversation will now be, wait a second, before we go out and hire somebody, can we do this cheaper with AI and better? Or can we hire somebody that's less experienced, teach them, and have AI tools that can help assist them with doing the audit better? And so we don't have to hire like a very experienced person, So I do think there's going to be those types of decisions that we're going to make that 5 years ago. I think we're just feeling we're going to go hire somebody, right? That's just how it was. But I do fear that I want to view auditors as the human in the loop forever. So I think that's the way I'm going to look at it so that I never lose my job. But I feel like auditors can be that human in the loop. And I do think audit firms will leverage AI, and they're going to continue to leverage it. I mean, the Big Four's invested billions of dollars, right, in AI. I don't know how much of that AI is actually helping their customers.
So in a way, the auditors have to remain the most cynical to AI and its capabilities.
Professional skepticism, Kendra. That's the term we're looking for. That is
Fair.
in our nature. It's my personality. I ask questions. I dig into things. I try to find holes. I can't help it. That's why I audit. So yes, I will probably be skeptical of it forever, but yeah, I can't help it. I love how Henry flipped this whole podcast on interviewing me. That was amazing, by the way.
I mean, we could talk about anything, man. We talk about TPRM, we talk about audits, we can talk about.
Yeah. No, I do think AI obviously is a good topic. I almost posted about it this morning. What we just talked about, I almost posted like what's the role? Like that exact question, I almost posted about it this morning, but I didn't. So I answered it here, but I'll probably post it next week before this goes out so that.
I've been missing more of the meme content lately. You've been pretty serious.
I know. Well, memes are hard. I need AI to help me create some. To be very good at it. Well, it wasn't the last time I tried.
Yeah, no, the best stuff comes from the real people. You can tell.
Well, I actually, okay. Okay, good. So I don't use AI in my posts because I feel like people can tell if I use AI because I've been posting for so long. So they know my voice, they know my tone, and they know how I do it. I feel like if I used AI, it would be obvious.
Potentially, yeah. I think you
Yeah.
had some. Yeah, I mean, you could set up a really fancy pipeline to train it on your content, but it probably still wouldn't be as good.
Yeah. I'm not that smart to train AI content, though.
It's super easy. I'll show you how to do it later.
Don't encourage him, Henry. We need authentic.
I know. That's also, yes. Every time we talk about AI, it always makes me feel like I'm like against AI every time we talk about it on this podcast. That's what I feel.
No, you're just putting a line in the sand between who you are and then like raw output. And I think that makes sense, especially on like LinkedIn, which it is becoming just AI slop. Just like come up with ideas for me. Now write the idea, train on my personality and make it just sound a little bit closer, more human. And then out it goes. That's like everything you see out there now. So I'm with you. I feel like there's use in it, but just don't use it for everything.
I think you should use it
Here-
for like rapid iteration and brainstorming. I don't think you should just like questionnaires. You shouldn't just like press button, hit post like that. It's never gonna, I'm not gonna say never, but I don't think that's not the kind of practitioner I want to be, when it comes to like my kind of execution, when it comes to content, and I don't know. There's like this almost love of the craft, right? Like if you're just doing it if that's just like the means to the end, then it's a bit soulless. And I think that you kind of lose the opportunity to actually enjoy it. I like writing. I like creating things.
Yeah. I'm genuinely terrified that I'm going to like lose all creative capabilities that I have if I rely on like a chat GPT too much. So I have to really push myself sometimes to not turn over to the old engine and say, hey, spit this out for me. I'm feeling brain dead right now.
Like, if it helps, I have started playtesting and engineering a card game fully in ChatGPT instead of trying to print it out and trying to figure out what that would look like and terrorizing my poor other half to be like playing this nerdy ass game. It has worked incredibly well.
Awesome.
And all you have to do is just like, hey, help me build the game mechanics and all the concepts. But like, if you just ask it to be a coach and ask you questions and then say, don't come up with the actual stuff, you can set it up where it'll just kind of guide you and add structure or act like a project manager instead of like actually doing the real work.
You should try, I don't know if you got into this, but like try like vibe coding in like Lovable or Base 44 or something. You could probably set up like a simple database that like actually tracks and like runs all of the moves, so that you can play.
That is a good call. I haven't gotten that far. I've been like jerry rigging it where like instead of actual visual cards, it'll use like code boxes and it's kind of goofy. So I'm trying to play within the realm of what it just offers, but hopefully, yeah, I can get to more advanced things because trying to look back at the different things, it is a huge pain in the ass. Like it has to generate probably way too much just to play the thing.
Dang. So Kickstarter game coming from Elliot.
Actually, you might not be too far off from that.
Hey, we buy tons of games off Kickstarter, so let me know.
All right.
When's our TPRM RPG coming out, right?
Okay, see, I could see like AI helping me build that because I would never be smart enough or creative enough to build something myself. That's yeah. But we were talking about TPRM though. How did it morph into like
That's what
Elliot
you want to have a structured
It
conversation.
was about sucking the soul out of your creativity by using AI.
Oh yeah, yeah. That's true.
And also, this is just what happens when you don't have a structured podcast.
You-
You just
I did
fall
read a
into what
book.
feels right.
I was reading a book recently and it compared like AI to the introduction of the calculator, like in the 80s. And everyone, like teachers and educators, thought that like everyone would lose their ability to like learn math. And they thought it was like the end. And it took a long time for schools to actually allow calculators into the school because they were like fearful of it. And they thought it would ruin everything and we wouldn't be able to add or subtract or do anything. And now they were right.
Yeah. Yep.
But it took like, I think it said like really till it was introduced in the 80s. And then it took like till the 2000s for like schools to really like have it like being allowed to be used on tests sometimes and all that. So it was kind of interesting. You think about it. I mean, AI will move a lot faster than calculators, but you know what I'm getting at. So to the point, yes, we will lose I think people will lose their creativity. I think it's a natural consequence of AI.
I think it's moving you up the stack. Like I like to think of it that way. I'm a little bit more optimistic. I don't think we're going to lose creativity. I think you're going to see new and unforeseen tools come out, and people will start using those tools that allow them to express creativity at higher levels of abstraction. Right? They're going to be doing more, faster, and having to do less piecing together of the components, and they just have the actual thing that they're going to then take to the next level. Like, I'm a musician. Like, I'm big into music. I produce music. There's this whole like kind of like debate in the music and producers community about like, oh, like, are you using sample packs? Are you using like, virtual instruments? You should really be recording your own sound. And it's like, no, it's just a different way of packaging up the pieces of a track, of a song, and like actually producing something that people care about, right? So it's just about being creative with different levels of abstraction. And I think that it's just, yes, this is simplified, but like it's, it's just a different kind of tool, and we just, we'll adapt, and we can, yell at the clouds and all that good stuff along the way. But I think that people are going to come up with some really crazy shit that we're not going to ever anticipate with this. It's going to be really fun.
Eventually, we're going to be like our grandparents who are so angry about the fact that we all have cell phones and they didn't have those back in the day. We're going to be like, all you kids have is AI and you don't even make anything real anymore. What is this? That was one best granny boy.
That was pretty good. We're going to put that as the teaser. Yeah, for sure.
No, my grandparents do not sound like that.
Yeah, no, I think I get it. I don't know. I don't worry about it for people that are like us that are already like adults and have like developed skills on how to write and communicate and do all that. I do worry about my kids a little bit though. I mean, I don't know. I just feel like that they will struggle with communicating with people. They will struggle with responding to texts without using AI. They will struggle to write a thank you card. They will struggle to like do simple basic things that like are not hard to do because they never had to develop those skills because they were just leveraging technology to do it for them.
It's all right. In 20 years, Troy, no one's even going to make eye contact. I think I've said this before on a podcast. Have you tried to talk to like anybody between the ages of 15 and 22 lately?
That's what
Garbage.
I mean. This podcast won't even be us. We'll just be our AI like counterparts, like doing this, and that's what our kids will grow up with. They'll just be like sitting behind a computer or phone, and yeah, they will never open their mouths to actually communicate. It'll just be like their avatars talking, and they'll just be like, yeah. Exactly. Like we just hung
We
out,
need a new
drank a beer together, and we didn't even know it. Like that's how.
Yeah, we need a new Back to the Future movie set like 30 years in the future to see how much they get right, like they did back in 1985.
Well, this is like, I mean, to tie it back to TPRM, do you think the future is going to be AI agents talking to AI agents, or just like fetching data and responding to inbound requests? Is that the future?
I think that's the dream, right? That's what they want.
Why? No. Why? Well,
That's how it's being positioned.
that's a dream. I mean,
It's not the dream. From the economic perspective, that is how it's being positioned. That there should be a future state where agents are able to interact with each other. So us humans get to go do the actual important work and prioritize accordingly.
Is that how you want
Right.
to build like trusted relationships across organizations?
if there's a human in the loop still, yeah, then I'm okay with it. Like I guess that's where I always go back to, like, if we're just all gonna blindly trust all this, then the world will blow up. That'll be it. I'm just, that's it. They become stronger than us. They become smarter than us, super intelligence. And guess what? The AI says, oh, humans, they're kind of a threat to us. Now what happens, right? That's it. Where we're
How
done.
easy
We're
is-
done.
I always leave these podcasts feeling so optimistic.
That's it. That's it. I actually don't think that's going to happen. Well, if it happens, it won't happen in my lifetime. But I do think that's a possibility, though. It's definitely a possibility with all this.
Here's what I think will happen, at least for the scope of TPRM, which is why you have me on this podcast. So I'll bring it back. I think that agent to agent is absolutely possible, and it's a thing. I'm totally here for it. But the thing that's going to be hard about that is building and maintaining trust. The reason is, it's really hard to know if you want to trust any other entity that's outside of your organization. So being able to trust any other agent that's interacting with whatever interface you want to present to, externally is going to be really challenging. So figuring out how do you authenticate that relationship, how do you decide who to trust, is going to be a problem that needs to be solved. On top of that, I think that all of that is going to unlock some really interesting things. Namely, it's going to abstract away a lot of the busy work, a lot of the overhead, a lot of the frustrating parts about these workflows. And it's going to give people, ideally, that abstraction, right? Bringing it back to you, like we're kind of up-leveling ourselves here. Abstracting themselves away from that complexity and then being able to focus on more critical relationships, building meaningful human connections, because I think that's going to become highly prized and differentiated when it comes to actually building trust between organizations. So because of all of the opportunity for autonomy and like kind of automation, I think actually people are going to really treasure when they build a relationship with a counterparty when it comes to building trust. So that's at least the vision that I have. And, we have a Fabrik for, kind of what's possible is how can we actually build more human connection by giving people like the tools and the focus to kind of dive back into that.
Hear that, teenagers that are listening? Human connection. It's important.
I will always be skeptical. Because in that scenario, I'm just like you said, like, how do you trust? I'll always just back to like the trust. How do you trust the data? Like, I mean, even if you like do procedures to like gain comfort over that trust, I mean, it could mess up, right? I mean, it could hallucinate. So I trust a human to make a mistake more. Like I'm accepting of a human making a mistake more than I am of AI. That's kind of what I go back to.
Troy, you need to grow your AI sympathy, because when it eventually comes over and
I know it's
terminated-
gonna listen to this and say, hey, take him out now.
You're first on the list. With that said, I think that comes to the end of our episode, unfortunately, mostly so that we are not grouped into Skynet taking us out with Troy. So that makes it. Henry, thank you for joining us and going us on a rambling journey. I appreciate whenever we go off on tangents like this, but thank you so much. We appreciate it. And with that, join us and we will be back for another episode in about 2 weeks.
Thank you for listening to GRC Uncensored, the podcast, where Troy and Kendra know their shit, and our producer just talks shit. To learn more about GRC, Go to grcuncensored.com, subscribe to our newsletter, or join our community on Reddit. Viewpoints expressed during the show do not reflect the brands, employers, or companies of our hosts, guests, or sponsors.